I want to go ahead and do a quick introduction as people are making their way back. We are extremely fortunate to have Commissioner Aaron Demerson here. Aaron currently serves as the Commissioner representing employers for the Texas Workforce Commission. So if anybody got a high-demand job training grant in this room, thank the Texas Workforce Commission. And also this gentleman here, Doug Schrack, Workforce Solutions East Texas. We couldn't do those high-demand job training grants without you. And so, well, your local interaction, too, has made a difference, a profound difference. $387,500 difference in a year with grant money that goes towards higher education. So I want to thank you and commend your team, who also, they put on our job fair. They partnered with us on the job fair. So that was at the convention center. We had over 50 employers. We had educators, 5 different colleges. We had, I think at final count, 452 attendees. That's a big deal. And I looked at my staff, they're probably outside working right now. So I looked at my staff and said, do you think we could have done that? No. But your staff did. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Which, by the way, we're going to do that every year as long as my board agrees and we have funding and et cetera, et cetera. But thank you so much. I'll get back to Commissioner Demerson here. He serves as an advocate for over 620,000 employers in the state of Texas, as well as over 3 million small businesses. In 2019, he was appointed chair of the Governor's Advisory Council on Cultural Affairs by Governor Abbott. Demerson has had several related roles in the past, including director of the Office of Employer Initiatives at the Texas Workforce Commission, senior advisor to Governor Rick Perry, and executive director of the Economic Development and Tourism Division in the governor's office. He is formerly the director of business development, the director of administration for the Texas Economic Development Agency, and responsible for managing their finance division. He's a friend to Marshall. He's been here throughout the years. Probably the first one I met at TSTC Open House, where I learned how Texas economic development works. I'd like to recognize Commissioner Aaron Demerson and welcome you.
Coach, thanks so much for the introduction. They're giving me a clicker here, so I'm going to see if that works as well. I'm going to do something and kind of go off script a little bit. When I first walked in, Doug Shyrock, our CEO of the Workforce Solutions team here in East Texas, asked me to do something. And so we want to take this opportunity to recognize an employer that's based here in the city of Marshall. And this is every year at the Texas Workforce Commission annual conference, we have an opportunity to actually recognize individuals or companies and employers that are out there. They weren't not able to make the conference back in December, but we're here in Marshall today, and we want to take this opportunity to bring this. So, Doug, if you'll come up real quick, we're going to recognize Thumper Fabrication. Is Thumper here? I think, is JC here in the room? Okay, come on up, JC, okay? So based in Marshall, Thumper Fabrication is the industry-leading manufacturer of high-quality bumpers, audio roofs, roll cages, suspension lift kits, and accessories for leading UTV and ATV models. Thumper Fab is a valued customer of Workforce Solutions East Texas, listing job postings on Work in Texas and participating in job fairs along with the Rural Set Go Boost initiative. Since 2019, Thumper Fab has served as an employer for on-the-job training and work experience positions. Leveraging incentives from the Marshall EDC, Thumper Fab has invested in a facility expansion, creating new jobs. Thumper's goal is to provide customers with its most durable and technically advanced accessories and add-ons available. Workforce Solutions East Texas is proud to serve in partnership with Thumper Fabrication. All right, Doug asked me to do that as soon as I walked in, and so we were able to pull that off. But delighted to be here in Marshall, Texas today, right down the street from the famous historic Wiley College. Had an opportunity to visit the college a little bit, and so very historic and hallowed grounds there. But I'm going to thank a number of individuals that are here. But before I get started, I'm kind of reminded of a story, and this kind of makes sense right now because we're up against the clock, as they say. And so I was in Mexico City a number of years ago, and a grandmother was sharing with her grandson his best success with the show and tell presentation. You know, you had to make a show and tell presentation, and she said, "Mijo, in order to be successful with your show and tell, you need to do 3 things." She said, "Number 1, you need to make sure that you speak loud so that they'll hear you." I said, "Check, I got that." He said, "Number 2, you need to make sure that you speak clearly so that they'll understand you." I said, "Check, I got that." And he said, "Number 3, and most importantly, you need to make sure that you finish fast so that they'll clap for you." And so, so I'm going to finish fast because then we have Rich Ferschel, who's going to present. We had Dr. Perryman, who no one should ever follow Dr. Perryman. And so basically, I'm not following Dr. Perryman. There's a break in the action. This is a new program started, and so we'll go from there. But really appreciate Dr. Perryman and the work that he's done over the years, and for Rush to get Dr. Perryman down here, having Tom Mullins working with him and the like, this is pretty phenomenal in that regard. And so things are happening here. I got pretty excited. I was talking with the mayor, Mayor Ware. Thank you for welcoming us to your city. I know county judge is out here, Commissioner Timmons as well, but the county commissioners, the city council men and women, thank you for welcoming us to your respective cities. And so just a lot of exciting things that are happening out there. But I'm going to recognize a few folks here. Kimberly Bradford Brown is over here. This is my deputy chief of staff. She's in the audience. And also with Kimberly is Willette Wallace. Willette is actually from Marshall, if I'm not mistaken. And so Willette's home here visiting. And so welcome. Willette runs the office and takes care of business in that regard, and so we appreciate them both being here. But also Keith Hill, is Keith here, board chair for the EDC. Keith, thank you for being here and for what you're doing and for allowing Rush to do his job as well. And also, I hit Kim. We have Betty Russo. I want to get Betty from the governor's office that's here. Betty, if you stand, please. And we're going somewhere with all these introductions. It's very important for us to do this. But Betty represents this region for the governor's office. And so those are the boots on the ground for everything you need from that standpoint. And, of course, Doug Shyrock, that all of you guys know. Doug, that's in the back. Doug, thank you for everything that you're doing. We're doing a lot of work. You can give him a round of applause. It's okay. So I was sharing with Dr. Perryman that I actually stayed in Lindale, Texas about 3 weeks ago. I was here on the campus of Jarvis Christian University and had an opportunity to stay in Lindale, Texas, of all places. I was right there and taking care of business. But Doug was with us over in that area. And then lastly, I want to introduce Robert Andrade, who's here as well. Robert runs the high-demand job training program, those programs that Rush was talking about. Robert is the person in the office doing that. So, Robert, if you'd stand, I want folks to know who you are and get to know Robert Andrade. Well, we're thanking you for all you're doing. Rush just introduced me, and I had an opportunity to be appointed by Governor Abbott back in 2019, and then reappointed in 2021, and then confirmed by the Senate as well. And so I get to do that work with, we'll click, with those two individuals there. And so we have a 3-member commission. One is made up of a commissioner that represents the public. That's our chair, Brian Daniel. The other commissioner is Albert Trevino III. He replaced Julian Alvarez, and he represents the labor side of things. And so we at the Workforce Commission are charged with basically having an opportunity to bring employers, individuals, and communities together for economic prosperity. We want to make sure that our employers, our individuals, and our communities are in a position to sustain economic growth. Tommy Simmons in my office quite often says that we actually have an opportunity to provide Texans with another day of available work, another week of available work in that regard. And so we get to do that with 28 local workforce boards throughout Texas. Doug is in this position for East Texas, but we have 27 other workforce boards in the great state of Texas. It's a large state, and so you can travel Texas 14 hours and you're still here. But Doug, he's the boots on the ground for everything in this particular region. And so you talked about the job fair that took place on yesterday. The mayor was sharing with me about 400 students or so, maybe even more. Doug's team was sharing as well. A number of folks that are out there, employers that are taking care of business. But these are the boots on the ground for everything workforce related. Dr. Perryman talked about the labor shortage and those along those lines. And so if you need career opportunities or if you need jobs from that standpoint, these are the folks that will help individuals go in that direction. How many of you guys feel like that? That's how I feel. And so folks are really getting back to our state in big, big ways. But this is kind of Texas at a glance. And so you have an opportunity to look at some of the numbers that are there. Dr. Perryman talked about some of these numbers, talked about some of the things that are happening in our state from that standpoint. But it's, the fact of the matter, people are coming. Business is booming in Texas. Most of the jobs that we lost during the pandemic, we recovered those jobs. And we're doing that in a big way. You see some of the information that's mentioned there where you have more job openings than we have folks going into those positions. And so industry employers still need access to a labor force from that standpoint. And we've seen wages increase as well, probably about 14% increases in those wages over the years. And so we're wanting to make sure that we are in a position, our employers in a position to really get employees to their places of location, because at the end of the day, we don't want employers leaving the state of Texas because they can't find a labor force. We want to make sure that we're doing our part to make sure that they are skilled and we have an available labor force for those employers that are here. Those are some of the governor cut touts, and in Texas, they'll say that we're bragging once again, but we always say in Texas it ain't bragging if it's true. The fact of the matter is that we're taking care of business in a big way. And so these are some things from the governor's office that puts out what we call touts or what have you, but Governor's Cup for 10 years in a row. That's changed. We're at 11 years in a row. We were at the governor's mansion on just yesterday where we celebrated a new Governor's Cup for the 11th year in a row, but 19 of those governor awards. And that's given to the state that has the highest number of recruitment projects that are coming in. And it's not anything, other states are jealous of that. They're basically watching Texas do some things and business is booming in that regard. But we're proud of what we're doing there, but we don't rest on our laurels. Events like the ones that are taking place today at the local level is what allows Texas to move forward in that regard. You see the Texas top state for Fortune 500 headquarters at 54. There was a time when we were at 28. I remember that. I've been in economic development for some times where Texas was at the top. And then we start losing that lead just a little bit to other states. But we're back on top in a big way. But we're home to about 54 of those top 500 Fortune 500 companies. Top state for investments in infrastructure. The governor talks about infrastructure as our state grows, the need for it. We have officials from the city here, the independent school district levels that are here. As Texas grows, you have water issues. I'm glad to see the fire chief here as well. And so you have water issues. You have health care needs. You have all these issues that are out there, and we're going to have to address it, especially if the communities are growing and the pipeline of talent to really take care of that infrastructure. We need to have a skilled workforce to do that. Younger and faster growing than the nation, and by far the stickiest state as well. Some of those stats that are out there, Dr. Perryman kind of talked about that. When you come to Texas, you actually want to stay in Texas. You don't want to leave out of the state at all, and we have a lot of that happening as well. But this is what I call the secret sauce in Texas, and this is where I want to spend a little time. When you're bringing together the worlds of workforce, economic development, and education. Again, workforce, economic development, and education. And you couple that with elected leadership, and mayors here, a number of county commissioners are here, city council members, county commissioners. When you bring elected leadership that gets it, then we're well on our way to success. And so when you have Rush doing economic development, when you have Doug doing workforce, when you have superintendent of the schools that are here, there are folks in education, East Texas Baptist University, Wiley College, TSTC, a number of the schools and the institutions that are represented in this audience today. And each one of us, as we're sitting here, we're probably in one of those circles. We're either doing economic development, workforce, or education. And if you're an elected leader that gets it, then we're well on our way to success. And so anytime you're out there, you're visiting, you're working with Tom Mullins, if Tom is doing, have projects that are going on, always ask that question, making sure that these guys are at the table at the appropriate time. Sometimes you might be meeting individually, but at the end of the day, if the employers understand or know what they need from that standpoint, but it's going to Rush and it's going to Doug so that Doug can understand how to get employees to that employer. That's communication. If the employers are saying we need a skilled labor force and Doug needs to go out there to train, the training is going to take place at one of those education institutions, when you have externship type programs where you have teachers that are in a position to go to the employer's place of location. We just honored, recognized Thumper Fab. When a teacher goes out there to see what they're doing, they begin to realize why it's important for them to teach what they're teaching to those students, because once those students graduate, they go into those jobs. And we have individuals that are in a position to go from high school to jobs. They can go from high school to certifications. They can go to high school from certifications to associate degrees and or the four-year universities if they so choose in that regard. But we have to make sure that these three entities are always talking, they're always collaborating, they're always communicating. And it's kind of the simple thing here in Texas. It's what makes us that successful. When you have 11 governor cups in a row, it doesn't just happen by chance, 19 overall. That's collaborative nature at the, between workforce, economic development, and education. We do that at the state level with something, and Robert's very familiar with this, we call it the matrix meeting. And whenever we're recruiting a major project, a big project that's coming into Texas, not even big, but just a project in general, we're making sure that everybody's at the table, that you have the comptroller's office there, that you have TxDOT there, that you have TCEQ from an environmental standpoint, so that at the end of the day, that employer is asking questions, we're in a position to have strike force capacity to answer and address those questions. And so take that same approach here at the local level. Rush has assembled a group here today. You have Carlton Schwab, who you're going to hear from. You had Dr. Perryman. You have Rich Rochelle that you're going to hear from next. These are some of the best and brightest that are out there. I mean, it's what it takes to make that work, and we have it right here in Marshall, Texas. And then at the local level, when you have an individual like Rush, I've worked at the state level. I worked for Governor Perry doing economic development and tourism. We've traveled the world bringing companies to our state. I'll go all the way back to the Toyota project that we had. And I remember the Boeing projects and the like. But if we don't have the economic developer with us at the state level, then we can talk about everything that we're doing in Texas, and we have a great business climate. We love it. Governor Abbott does a fantastic job of leading us in that direction. But if we don't have the folks with us at the local level, we can't talk about what's happening in Marshall, Texas. We can kind of say a few things, but when those individuals are with us, that's the tag team approach that we take in Texas to making things happen. That's when workforce, economic development, and education starts working. Right now, there's a legislative session going on. You have a number of communities that are down there in Austin right now. Yesterday was Texas Tech Day or Red Raiders Day. They were all over the place. We saw the red and black walking through the campus. But there are a number of other communities. I had a Pearland Chamber of Commerce breakfast the other day, but there are just a number. All the groups are down there, Brazoria County and the like. This is the time when Rush has an opportunity to take individuals down. So you visit with workforce, you visit with the governor's office, you visit with the comptroller's office. You're making those connections so that at the end of the day, if anything's happening in this community, you have access to those individuals. And so I want to encourage this type of collaboration in a big, big way. Workforce, economic development, and education, coupled with that elected leadership. I can't overemphasize how important that is because it allows us to get down the road from that standpoint. I met a young lady who works with the Housing Authority, I believe, as well. And so the work that she's doing, affordable housing, do we have that? Are we growing? You know, how do we make these things happen? Everybody needs to be at the table from that standpoint, and that's what gets us down the road. This is what we've been doing in rural Texas, a few of these adventures and the like, just traveling. I can't wait to put the picture of Marshall, Texas up there, here at the Grand as well. But we're in Elkhart, even a cell barn. I got a chance to go to one of those. I'd never been to a cell barn. But rural Texas is big for us. You know, and we're going out throughout the state of Texas, but not leaving rural Texas off the list at all. I have a program that's called Texas Interns Unite. At the state level, Texas Interns Unite, we're bringing together all the interns from the state that are involved in internships with employers, and we're basically making sure that they have an opportunity for exposure to those industries. Doing this in collaboration with the Higher Education Coordinating Board. So imagine this, there's a program out there right now. If you're an employer in the room and you do internships, and you want to pay your intern $20 an hour, you want to pay them $20 an hour, then we're in a position to pay $10 of that through the Higher Education Coordinating Board. And so the cost to the company is $10. The cost to the Higher Education Coordinating Board, they reimburse it the other 10. So that's a $20 internship for that student. And it works. They're making it user-friendly and the like. And so I want to suggest and encourage you guys to take advantage of those programs. I talked a little bit about the high-demand job training program. Rush kind of talked about it. But the work that they're doing within even that program at the state level, it comes out our Skills Development Fund program, our Skills for Small Business program. Doug and his team have access to all those programs. Betty knows the programs the governor has from the small business standpoint. But I'll circle back to Robert Andrade that's here, who has that high-demand job training program, the TIP program, and he works with a group that has a program that's called Jobs and Education for Texans. That's our JET program. Marshall Independent School District has already taken advantage of that program. And I'll wrap up by saying I'm mentioning those programs because I've seen communities that take advantage of those programs, and I've seen sea changes happen from that point. And so Rush is the boots on the ground. He's already had 3 of these things with Wiley, East Texas Baptist University, and TSTC. It's quite phenomenal in a short amount of time. And they're going to make an impact to those students that are being trained in a big, big way. And so take advantage of all those programs that I mentioned. Know that Rush has connections at the state level to do some things. He has connections within EDC because Carlton Schwab is here to talk about his resources as well. And all of these folks that I've introduced you to, from Willette to Kimberly to Robert and the like, these individuals that are at this point family. And that's what allows us to be successful here in Texas. And so this is the team that I have. We have 4 employment law attorneys on our team. And so if there's an employer out here, Tommy, Elsa, Mario, and Jaku are the smartest and the brightest in terms of employment law. And so these are individuals that are available for you. There's a policy team as well. So Texas Interns Unite. We hire vets where we recognize veterans at that level. Hireability program. I hear the bell, so I got 1 minute as I wrap up. The hireability program, where we recognize employers that have 10% of their workforce that are made up of folks with disabilities. Those are real programs. We have accommodations as well. And so I mentioned the veterans, and I don't want to go a step further. Any veterans in the room? You think they raise their hand or stand. Let's give them a round of applause for all they do as well. Thank you. Thank you. Sometimes they don't like to raise their hands, but we appreciate, we don't take for granted the ability, the freedoms that we have, and I'm up on this stage for a reason, and so we don't take that lightly. We truly, truly appreciate it in that regard. And so that's the team that if you want anything at the local level to contact, because they're the boots on the ground to make everything happen. So Doug and his team are here in this local level, but they are tied into us at the state level from that standpoint. And then I wanted to thank Rush as well. Congratulations, Rush, on pulling this off. This is something that's pretty phenomenal, pretty impressive. And let me tell you, if you take advantage of the programs that are out there, and you're already doing that in a big, big way, then you're going to be well on your way to success. Workforce, economic development, and education, coupling that with elected leadership that gets it, and we're well on our way to success. And so thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to take my seat, and we'll bring up Rich.